Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your kind attendance. We have with us Mr. Sawada, who's President and CEO of NTT, and he will talk about the new medium-term management strategies, the five-year plan, which was announced back in November. We would like to hear from him about the new plan. So, Mr. Sawada, if you would like to take the floor. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you so much. My name is Sawada. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Please be seated, sir. Thank you. I'll be serving as the moderator. My name is Masuno. I'm responsible for IT and telecom policy at Nomura. We have 50 minutes for this session. After his comments, we would like to open the floor for Q&A. So allow me to be seated from this point onwards. Thank you for your kind understanding in advance. So today we'll be talking about the new medium-term management strategy. This will be the main focus of our dialogue. So if you could share with us the intentions as well as the outline of this plan to the extent possible. So let me start. I was really amazed. 5 years from now, you're talking about EPS growth of 50% in 5 years' time. That's the plan you have. And so compared with our expectation, actually, the target was even more ambitious than we had initially expected. So this was a very positive surprise for us. Now, having said that, what are your intentions and thoughts behind these targets? And also, what's the message to the marketplace? Can you share with us your target and the intentions behind your new medium-term plan? Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. Well, I was appointed as the president and CEO this year, so we've had several months of discussion internally within the group on this matter. First, we wanted to talk about how we intend to grow our profits. Now, of course, we had always intended that APS growth should be set as one of the main key targets because this was the case for the previous medium-term plan. So we wanted to continue on with that. At the same time, on top of the profit growth, we also wanted to pursue improved efficiency through buyback. And we thought that this could be achievable. We were confident this was fairly achievable. And so, yes, these are very aggressive targets. So that is true. The underlying thought is cost reduction. And of course, we want to engage in new growth areas, investment in new growth areas as well. And at the same time, achieve and drive our profit growth. So I think that's the message behind these targets and the plan. So you talked about targets. You used the term targets. And you mentioned that this is doable, achievable. You're confident that this will be achieved. Well, if you ask me, well, I was asked, was this a commitment? And yes, this represents commitment. That is true. So yes, that's the response which we have been providing. Okay, well, 50% growth. Let's talk about the breakdown of the 50% growth in EPS. As opposed to the main part would be a growth in operating profit. In operating income, that is how we see it. Of course, this also includes cost reduction as well. And since you're involved in different businesses, I would imagine that you want to see growth in the market. So these are the breakdown. Yes, that is the case. Our group has a very extensive portfolio. We see diversification of our portfolio for the NTT group. So in particular, when it comes to our global business, we are involved in many different things. And we want to make sure that despite what happened, we drive in growth. And so all of these businesses will drive our profits. Now, one thing, with regard to real estate, well, we have NTT Urban Development, but we're going to make NTT Urban Development 100% wholly owned subsidiary. We already made the announcement. And that increment will be reflected going forward. So the impact of urban development is not reflected in our medium-term targets at this point. Thank you. I would like to ask about real estate later on. With regard to cost reduction, you have set the target of 800 billion in cost reduction in this plan. Our understanding is that this includes both fixed and mobile-related cost reduction. So so that is our understanding. With regard to share buyback, this will contribute to EPS growth, and that is our understanding. I think that is your plan. I understand. But then, having said that, to what extent are you going to realize the share buyback? What is the size of your share buyback program? That is our point of interest. So can you talk about your basic policy behind your share buyback? Well, thank you. Well, Mr. Masuno, when I talk to you, I think I'll be disclosing everything to you. But fundamentally, in the previous medium plan, we already carried out 1.5 trillion in share buyback over a 5-year period. And so that being the case, we want to include the possibility of doing share buyback that is larger than that size. Now, depending on the operating profit, the size of the share buyback could be larger or could remain flat. We want to see that going forward. So 1.5 trillion of share buyback over a 5-year period, that is the largest buyback in the past. And you're saying that you want to continue on with that size of share buyback for this current plan. I see. Well, EPS growth, 50% growth, that is the message. And I want to talk about each market segment, each big business segment. Perhaps we could start with your mobile business, because there's so much interest in your mobile business. Yeah. Yeah, Docomo announced its price reduction earlier on, and that was also a surprise. And it seems that the numbers have taken on a life of its own, and have caused a bit of a confusion. People are perplexed as to how they should understand the numbers announced by Docomo. So on that point, perhaps I could ask about NTT Holding Company's thoughts about 400 billion yen price reduction that was announced by Docomo. What is the intention behind that? What is the significance of price reduction at Docomo? If you could share with us NTT Holding Company's point of view on this matter, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Well, I use the phrase Docomo shock. And yes, we did cause inconvenience in relation to Docomo. We are aware of that. But for 4 years before I became the president, I was the CFO of NTT Holding Company. And in 2014, we had the so-called first Docomo shock back then. And again, back then, we also caused inconvenience. But then the situation is different from that. We have all the cards available now. So therefore, it's very easy for me to make a clear message. First, it was that the market environment was undergoing a major transformation. In particular, with regard to regulation, they were now talking about complete separation between handsets and network charges, unbundling and separation of that. So bearing that possibility in mind, this was what we did. Just a straightforward separation of handsets and network charges would not cause anything. But, for example, with regard to traditional services, let's say that why not be proactive as a leader and, if you will, taking on the renewal of 3G facilities, for example. So reducing cost and also reducing cost efficiency and taking leadership. For the past 4 years, Docomo has been carrying out a series of price reductions. And what has happened is that in each given market segment, not all the prices ended up being very inexpensive. In other words, what's happening is that we wanted to capture the market change. And this really represents an opportunity for us to emerge as a market leader by leveraging the market change. As for the other two competition, they have their own second brand. So therefore, it's very difficult for these brands to proactively reduce prices. So this current opportunity represents a major opportunity for Docomo. And also 5G is coming, which means that we need to roll out new pricing regimes for 5G, which includes added value. And as Docomo has announced, financial payments and also membership, they are trying to shift to membership-based services. So with these three pillars, and with these three engines, based on that assumption, we felt that we can accommodate a certain level of price reduction. We wanted to send that signal about an upcoming price reduction, and we wanted to make sure that this was reflected in our mid-term plan. Because if we announce a mid-term plan that does not reflect those possibilities, it will end up being very insincere. So therefore, NTT Holding Company and Docomo, in their mid-term plans, we wanted to reflect that. But then this number is not price reduction per se. It's really customer return program. It's the size of the customer return program that we're talking about. So at what time, in what segment are we going to introduce customer return program? We're designing that at this moment. And the impact on profit will be visible from this point onwards. So therefore, maybe this did not come across clearly in our communication. Naturally, we're going to do our very best to generate profits, of course. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we provide good services to our customers and hopefully be able to improve our market share. And we want to emerge as a leader on this front. So we have these. So as a result of these two considerations, we decided to make that announcement at that timing.
So as a result, as an emergency statement, the new world that you're looking for example, the 2-year contract will not exist in that world, or a 4-year contract for the handset will not exist in the new world. Listening to you as NTT, those 2 years or 4 years contract will not exist in this new world. And you made that decision that new world is going to come. And within that environment, you thought, what should you do? And then it's simple and it's aligned with the needs of the customers. And you've had the appropriate pricing plan out there and become a market leader. And of course, other additional effects will follow you, which will lead to profit generation. Is that the correct understanding? Yes. And if I may add, The feature phone, we have 17 million subscribers still for that, and that's on the 3G network. And as long as those customers exist, we will have to have a 5G technology before the 3G customers shift over. And KDDI is saying that they're going to migrate all their 3G customers. And to realize that the service is not sufficient. So that's why we wanted to bring in the measures and services that will realize that. If we say this to the overseas people, in Japan, the penetration rate of the feature phone in Japan is about 1/3 still remain, and there's only 2/3 of the users that are using the smartphone, and people from overseas are quite surprised. If that is so, we have to change the structure of the pricing. And if it's the status quo, there will be a lot of people who will not move over because it's 18 million that use 3G. And if it's a smartphone, it'll be 4,000, 5,000 yen per month. So the 3G feature phone users are not moving or shifting over. So once they shift over, there will be a new way of using it, and the ARPU will go up also. And Docomo has the R&D forum right now, and next April to June, you're talking about the 4G pricing. And a year from then, 2020 spring, you'll officially have the commercial service of 5G starting. Therefore, from our perspective, there's a 4G and next spring, and a year from there, spring, there's 5G. Therefore, everything is going to start to connect, and you'll have visibility. And as you said, Mr. Sawada, you will be lowering the price once. However, from the low end to middle end to high end, everybody, including the 5G technology, they're all going to be linked, and we're going to enter the new world. Yes. Well, we are going to develop how the customers use the phone, and at the same time, our company and other carriers will improve their profit. That's the structure that we are aiming for. May I say one more thing? On the other hand, when we separate the handset and the network charge, in the old days, in 1995, the fixed line market faced competition. The first was separation of the handset. And so there was a competition on the handset side, and a very large market was constructed. So if we learn from that, the handset side also should have more competition, more wearables entering the market. And now Docomo will be able to enter that competition, or would want to enter that competition. That's the will that Docomo has. So the market changing and this handset being separated, in addition to the competition of the carriers, there will be a revitalization of the competition among the handset side too. And this type of economic impact will occur. And if that is so, the users will receive the benefit also. And you will utilize on their loyalty. And you're talking about the membership, increasing that 10 million. And so that 400 billion yen effect will show there also. And now, how is the profitability going to recover? Within the market, there are various interpretations. And you said that Docomo, in their official comments, said that 2024 March term, that they're going to recover their profit to the current level. But our understanding is that this pricing decline, I think the pricing effect is not incorporated. It seems as a very conservative target that they have. And this 400 billion yen, it's all going to remain all the way 400 billion yen, and the revenue is going to continue to decline. That's not going to happen. No, it's not. So they're temporary things that are included in this. If that is so, there's no temporary events anymore, and there will be additional incremental effects, such as shifting over to 5G or 4G, or there are more competitive competition occurring in the handset and others. And this cost reduction of 800 billion yen, you will be doing quite for the mobile side. Well, track record says it will be half of that 800 billion from mobile side. And then that means that a profit, as the holding company is saying, will recover early, and after that it will increase their profitability continuously. And Docomo and your company too is having this official plan. But in that way, the 5-year business plan is going to be implemented. I just wanted to confirm these points with you once again. Yes, that is the base. As the CEO and president of the holding company, I want to stop it going down if possible. We would like to put our efforts so that it will not go down at all. We put our efforts, Docomo put the efforts, and the group will put the efforts, and we actually established a working group to work on this. If we lower the pricing by large, then there will be an impact. But what we want to do is we want to recover that impact as soon as possible. However, how should I say this? For the lowering the price, at what segment, how much of the price are we going to lower? That's very flexible. And we'd like to keep a close eye on the other companies, carriers, or the Rakuten, who will be the new entrant to the market. We would like to keep a close eye on their movement, and we will be making the decisions. Thank you very much. Next, after the mobile, the next major theme is the global business. And regarding that, I would like to hear your comments. In the last midterm management strategy, this area was remaining as a homework in part. And this global businesses within the next 5 years, how are you going to make it grow? I think is a major item too. Specific measures or technical justification or the group becoming one. There's various directions, but at the beginning, I would like to ask you specifically what kind of initiatives and measures will be implemented. Well, there are 4 major initiatives. First is a collaboration on the sales front. What I will be talking will be related to whether it's integrated or not integrated, but if the sales force is scattered around the world, how can they collaborate with each other and create account plan and cultivate new customers? How can we establish such a new structure? We can do that. Till now, it was a different company, but we have integrated the companies. That's one thing. And the second point is the services. Because we have different companies, we have various services. The line of business, or should I say the service itself, what will be the service saved as the main product or separated from the others? Working on that, sorting that out is a second. And if we line up all the services, then the background deliveries side, such as the offshore or the works, the backyard work, we need to work on that. And the fourth is the procurement or the accounting processes. How can we unify that or improve the efficiency of these type of works? So there are 4 initiatives that we're focusing on. And entity security, we have integrated that. But overall, dimension data and entity communications, they were doing their work separately. So this time, with the initiative of integrating, we are going to accelerate that integration to realize the 4 initiatives and pillars that I have just shared with you. Okay, what you're saying right now is that how are you going to reinforce the area that the users can see? And how are you going to improve the efficiency in terms of expenses and costs? But in the background of that, the technology innovation is becoming very fast, and you do have technology justification to what you provide in the services, or the services itself will become obsolete. So this time in the technology side, you have various initiatives. So once again, this technology side, on a global basis, you strengthen it and you reflect that on the service. If there's a front and the back side, the technology side, in the next 5 years, what are you planning to do? I would like to ask you that question.
Thank you. You see this slide here. I talked about the 4 initiatives. These are things that need to be pursued in a very authentic manner. At the same time, though, these are things that involve discussions with other players, and there are a lot of different solutions that are possible. But then this alone would not create added value. As you mentioned, Mr. Masuno, we need something that is innovative. We need backing through technological innovation. And how to find that innovation, we have decided to identify 3 initiatives for the medium term, the short term, medium term, and the long term. As for the short term initiative, right now what we have is a company that handles Latin American business and the European business for NTT Data. This team is doing very well. That is because of the very excellent advisory team available at NTT Data. They're providing advice and consulting services and proposals for customers who are pursuing digitalization. It's a team of experts backed by technology rather. And we want to spread that throughout the globe so that this can emerge as a team that can support and render support. So that's the short-term innovative approach. The third is setting up of a so-called venture fund. And so we will identify new technology of the medium term and also reinforce our advisory capacity through this medium-term initiative. And the third is the long-term initiative. We're looking at something that is more long-term than the IT business that is already ongoing. We're looking at 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. For example, quantum computing related would be one case in point, and also life science related would be another. So what we want to do is to set up a research center and hub outside Japan in several locations throughout the world. And we want to make sure that we're able to invite participation of people around the world and create such technology. So this is something over the long distance. And the know-how that we gain can be incorporated into our comprehensive total solutions which we offer. So this represents a short-term, medium-term, and long-term initiative, and these are the intentions of our activities. So as a result, over the next 5 years, you're going to pursue integration of businesses, and I'm sure that we'll be seeing how this plays out in actual terms. As you pointed out, entity security, dimension data, entity communications, and entity data. You have many players within the group. And as a result of your initiative, at the end of the day, what type of structure are we likely to emerge? Are we likely to see, rather? Are we going to see, you talk about the so-called one entity. At the end of the day, are we really going to see one entity in relation to products and services? So what type of vision do you have for entity? What do you mean by one entity, if you could explain? Yes, thank you. Well, in terms of one entity as an organization, we have a global holding company under the name of Entity Inc. Now, this company is a vehicle for integration process, and so Entity Inc. will not host actual business per se. But underneath Global Holding Company or Entity Inc. will be incorporated Global OpCo as a result of a reorganization, and also Entity Data, because this listed company will remain as such. And also and Japan OpCo that will handle various businesses for the first time. And so as a result of incorporating all these elements, we'll be able to offer full-stack services, which is backed by technological innovation and disruptive technology. And we're in the position to offer constantly new proposals for the customers. So this is a living model. It's a very dynamic model, and that is our intention. And if I may, one entity. For the purpose of enhancing our brand awareness, we want to use the term NTT and expose and increase our global exposure under NTT brand. Thank you very much for that. So far we've been talking about global. Now, in the medium-term plan, you also focus on the domestic business as well. Domestic business is expected to make a contribution, if you will, in relation to your profit generation. So going forward, rather, from this point onwards, we want to talk about your domestic business for each given business market segment or business segment, if I may. So first, let me start with the domestic fixed line business. For the past 5 years, the FTTH model was shifted from direct retail to wholesale model, and you've realized cost reduction, and you've been able to achieve very high level of profit and also generate substantial cash from that business. And you also talked about cost reduction of 100 billion yen, and you mentioned that 50% comes from fixed, which means that fixed line business will be driving 400 billion yen worth of cost reduction. So therefore, you for continuous efficiency in relation to capex, and also driving natural attrition by having people retire at the age of 65. So if you could talk about the level of profit for your domestic fixed line business, and also how do you intend to maintain as well as grow your profits from the domestic fixed line business. So if you could share with us your expectation and also your policies about the domestic fixed line business, I would appreciate it. Yes, it is as you pointed out. By shifting to the wholesale model, our traditional network business profit was enhanced significantly. And also at the same time, our depreciation cost since we switched to declining balance method, from declining balance to straight line method, we've been able to also really narrow down on the depreciation costs. And in line with that, we've been able to contain and check capex, which means that we have a very efficient cost structure, and it's possible to maintain that. But then it would be a mere preservation of the current status quo. And as we already made this announcement, we want to make sure that we can also drive profits and revenue. So therefore, what is important is that we be involved in revitalization of the regional economies through AI and IT. That's another key point. Naturally, the target customer segments would be local governments and SMEs in various different local communities. And so we want to offer very straightforward, simple solutions. We are already beginning that effort. So expanding sales of that type of product would be one case in point. And also in relation to wireless, it's important that they be marketed. If you will, it's targeted toward business. By doing that, we can actually drive revenue and also generate incremental profits. That's what we want to gain. And also, we want to create a urban solution business. It's not just for Tokyo. It's not the three major urban centers. We want to make sure that this type of urban solutions can be offered to all corners of Japan. This type of initiative is likely to be very active down the road. So we want to support that through IT. So that is another target which we have. So this, I believe, will be the basic fundamental policy for a regional carrier business. Thank you very much for that. One other point. In the current midterm plan, maybe this is something 5 years ahead, but already in 2025, you are going to unify your PSTN network. You're going to unify your switching. And this is already announced, that the PSTN migration is already announced. But what are the advantages and the benefits of migrating PSTN to IP network? Well, this relates to our backend. Of course, we've been reducing cost for the backend, but with this initiative, we will require less amount of headcount, which means that throughout Japan, we'll have a uniform pricing as a result of the switch. For example, NTT Communications. NTT Communications is offering long-distance telephony services, but that will then be migrated to the regional carrier to NTT East and West. And so that is one thing. And once this advances, then the discussions about universal service will have to be addressed. What will happen to universal services? This discussion is already beginning at MIC, but what will happen to universal service obligation? So for NTT East and West, I think things will be much easier for them. Hopefully we'll be able to put a request so that a mechanism which is much more conducive for entities will be created. Thank you for that information. MIC is now talking about universal services. They're now talking about using mobile and rather than just fixed line for the delivery of universal services. This is now a new discussion.
I'd like to talk about the domestic business of NTT Communications because I think that's important. Within the plan, you have the B2B2X model to develop partners in Japan. And I believe that is going to be the business for NTT Communications for the Japan side. And for that, what is going to become the driver? And why is that going to be the foundation of all? Can you mention that? Well, the market itself, especially in Japan, there's a lack of people or population. So RPA technology or robots or process automation or digitalization, maybe I should say. And there are customers' needs increasing further. And NTT Communications is a company that's providing services. So the recent example is a call center solution is really strongly performing. And with RPA, more than 2,000 business offices are using it. So we have that type of business or IoT, or we can prepare materials that can respond to the digitalization. And the telephony part, let's say it switches over to NTT East and West, but this time within the global reformation, there's an overseas operating company, NTT Communications, and we want the domestic part of it to revitalize itself too. And as you said, the B2B2X model, the standard model we think of, there are 4 models, and there are 13 projects currently. But we would like to increase that to 100 within the next 3 years. And the majority of that is what NTT Communications is going to be involved, is what we think. So there's a lot of bright news on the horizon. And also the data center business, the overseas data center business, you'll be creating a company overseas for overseas. But in Japan too, you're putting your efforts in the data center business, and I believe that's quite promising too, right? Yes. As you know, for Japan, we're going to shift over to the big data era. Therefore, how can we store that data? The demand is going to continue to expand. So that part is a strong performing area too. And also for the Japan topic, the entity data. We talk about the overseas business, but they do have the business here in Japan. The economic situation is good, or the reform of the working way and others. And recently, the Osaka Expo was decided. So various projects in line. Therefore, NTT data, the system integration or the solutions or cloud, what do you think about their domestic business? Well, when I was executive vice president of the holding company, with the United States trend of cloud first, we thought that maybe the pipeline's going to decline, or the scale of each deal might have become smaller, was my concern. However, the reality is it's actually increasing. And in addition to that, the 2020 Olympic year, and we thought that that was going to decline again, but that was the wrong outlook. And even beyond 2020, it's going to continue to increase. And also, you mentioned 2025, there's the Osaka Expo. And that itself, how is the legacy going to be remained, is another discussion point. And then when we talk about the IR, with the various events, we believe that the pipeline is going to increase. And we believe that the opportunity is going to further increase. And also, we have many customers that we have been working together up to this point. So we can expect quite a strong profit increase. Okay. As you have mentioned right now, Japan domestic corporations' activities are quite active, and cloud, which is the strength of NTT data. That part, there's like this a hybrid service that it is properly protected. Yes. Well, the financial industries, restructuring the bank or the local banks, various challenges that they're facing is the topic that's up now. But from the IT perspective, even with those situations, with the IT technology, things can be rationalized. So it's structured in a way that the pipeline is going to increase. Finally, Japan also is facing an era where IT is going to be deeply incorporated in the company management. Thank you. So the existing core domestic business, I did ask about the situation. But lastly, regarding the real estate business, I wanted to ask you questions. This time, NTT Urban Development, you have made it 100% owned subsidiary, and that was a surprise. There are various surprises. But why at this timing are you placing the real estate business as a core, and you brought it in as a 100% owned subsidiary company and spending a long time to it, where you're trying to grasp another phase of growth of this business? And why now, and what kind of opportunities exist? I would like to ask you these questions. Thank you very much. The external market situation, there's the movement towards SDGs and interest towards the global environment or the infrastructures that have been constructed, or the structure of the cities itself is not matching the current times, meaning that in various areas around the world, we may call it the smart world, everybody wants to create this smart, digitalized world, is the voices that we hear. And in Japan, in a different sense, there's a declining population and it's an aging society. So the land and the cities should be more compact is the trend here. So there's that market situation as such. And when we look back at ourselves, we have 7,300 telephone offices that exist. And there are assets that are used only for telecommunications. So how can we utilize that and increase the added value and profit from that? Is the perspective we had. If that is so at an early stage, making the company wholly owned and transfer the entity group's real estate or assets. Maybe we don't have to fully transfer it, but increase the development opportunities by doing so. We can respond to the market changes and needs. And that is going to be a smart building or smart towns. And therefore, ICT is going to become indispensable part of this. What that means is that we will be driving the market, but we will be actually generating demand. So that's why we wanted to put our efforts at an early stage. So one characteristic is that the asset, your balance sheet, you will be cleverly utilizing it and you're going to revitalize it. And one major example is the real estate, and another is the data center. You're going to make that into a REIT. And so moving forward, you're going to have quite advanced initiatives. And you do have the ROIC, a target within your financial targets and your midterm management strategy. So NTT Group probably has a various properties. The physical scale, we don't have the image of that. It's difficult to get that image. So you said Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, the real valued property. You want to redevelop it and to further increase the value of it. You said there's several properties. So how much a potential of real estate utilization do you have? This is just the scale. Okay.
Well, we already have facilities in many of our assets, so we need to take that out. And so we have to reflect the cost before we can really calculate the return. But unless these are areas that are valuable, unless these areas where we can indeed reap benefits, it will be very difficult to be profitable. So therefore, we're trying to trace the capability of 7,300, and we believe that out of them, maybe 50 could be potential candidates. But then also we have to bear in mind a compound development project in the surrounding areas. And also, depending on the situation on the ground, the situation could vary. And also, it could be that the size of the project could be smaller. So therefore, the number of telephone stations that are subject to these projects could also expand. So our model has to incorporate all these many different elements into consideration. And by the way, we have 2,500 facilities that are primarily telecom facilities. These are going to be utilized as such facilities. As for remaining 5,000 or so, if they're valuable, maybe we can use that for another purpose, as long as they're valuable. But these are really in remote rural communities. I see. Thank you. Even urban centers, 50 potential candidates for redevelopment activities. That's quite a substantial number. Yes, it has potential. So that could be an upside in the 5-year medium-term plan. So you could consider that as another upside. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have already taken 40 minutes of the session, and the midterm. So the 50% EPS growth target, and also increase operating profit, and also very large share buyback, which exceeds the scale of the previous plan. So we have about 10 minutes remaining. We have heard about the 5-year plan. So I would like to take questions from the floor at this juncture, and would like to invite Mr. Sawada to respond and explain. So if you have any questions, may we ask you to please raise your hand. And we would appreciate it if you could state your name and affiliation before you ask our question. We would really appreciate it. So that's how we would like to proceed with the Q&A session. So we would now like to take your questions. Any questions from the floor? Anyone? Well, Mr. Sawada, he is a newly appointed president, the CEO. He has just announced the new medium-term management strategy. Oh, yes. We see the gentleman in the front row. Please go ahead, sir.
For taking my question. I'm Howard Gleischer from Aristotle Capital. In your price reduction program earlier, you mentioned that there was still about a third of your users that were on feature phones, not smartphones, and you wanted to find ways to encourage those users. Perhaps one of the reasons was that the price was too high. But perhaps that's only one reason. Perhaps there are a myriad reasons of why the smartphone penetration is lower currently in Japan than other parts of the world. How do you can you list some of those other reasons why you think those are not switching to smartphones, and the strategies that you have in place other than purely price to encourage that usage? Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much for your question. In terms for the feature phones, I agree with you that not only that price reasons, they have a several. My case is I don't use a lot of applications, only for a phone and the mail message and some web. So such me, my wife is also. We don't need a very variety of a type of a smartphone. Do you know the Lac phone or the Android type of a feature phone? That is one of the solutions for them. But still, they very expensive in the network side. So that we need to combine the very reasonable type of network service with good handset for such a segment of customers. So it's mere variety or the need fit service for elder people or the not smart home peoples. That is still we are on the way, I feel. So the strategy is one is price, the other is apply for needs, especially for handset side. That's my ideas. That's okay.
Yeah. はい、他にご質問
Thank you very much. And any other question? So switching from feature phone to smartphones, what are some of the impediments for people switching from feature phones to smartphones? So that's the first question. Any other question? We still have time.
私から
From my side, actually, when we think about the 5G technology, with 5G technology, it's only with smartphone. Maybe we don't have to collect that much high function, but 5G is a gateway, and connect that to wearables. And should we call it a handset or a headset or eye set or wrist set? There's going to be various gears, and the access point to integrate those gears will be the 5G technology or 5G technology handset. So this type of new technology consumer architecture is what I want Docomo to propose. That's a discussion point too. So the 5G itself, should we call it beyond smartphone or should we call it beyond smart endpoint? I don't know what will be the appropriate, or the beyond the edge. I think we should take a structure that it will change in that direction. I'm sure there's various edges, but the device is a final edge and is an edge, and the network is an edge, the server is an edge also. So I'm sure various initiatives can be realized. As you said at the beginning, how can you promptly come up with a solution? So how can you realize a real-time connection? That is also too. So of course, in the 5G era, well, the processing speed is the issue. And even the connected car, when you think about it, even though it's a gateway first, but at the end, there's a car. Well, I cannot call it a handset, but there will be a smart edge that's a car. And it doesn't have to be a car. It could be anything. That could be a discussion. And then beyond that will be implantables. The so-called these devices that will actually connect with the human body, I believe will come out too. Thank you very much.
皆様どうぞ前から
Yes, please. We'll go to the person in the second row.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. Scott Anderson with Lazard Asset Management. I think that NTT has made great progress in recent years to improve its capital efficiency, buybacks and dividend increases, and the decision to bring NTT Urban in, I think, was positive. Could you comment on the potential for further improvements in particularly your listed subsidiaries? Taking Docomo in would be bold, but how you think about the costs and benefits of having many listed subsidiaries, and whether there's other things you can do to further improve your capital efficiency. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much for your question, Nida. So of course, that is a good point. We need to much more improve the cost capital efficiency of subsidiaries, especially the Docomo. We focus on their balance sheet. And currently, we carry out with Docomo's buyback. That is one of the solutions, either to collecting cash base for holding company, to providing so much more good shareholder return, and to make our values. So that we will continue such a type of way. And our basic policy for shareholder return is increasing dividend continuously. That's the key issues. It means with buyback. That's with subsidiary buyback. Or in some cases, the special dividend we need to collecting, gathering. And then also ROIC. It means efficiency based. We has already set as an index of midterm strategy plan. And also I am going to ask to our subsidiaries each ROIC of Docomo, Data, NTT, other companies. That is our guideline of a business plan. So entirely NTT, we will improve our ROIC. That's based on each subsidiary will improve their ROIC. That is our next management from the next years. That's my answer. Is that okay for your questions? Okay.
はい今
There was a question regarding the NTT Group's structure, but are there any other questions? Well, we can take one more question. I think time will allow for one more question. The third person from the front row, that will be the last question. Thank you very much. Mitsui Sumitomo Trust Asset. My name is Takizawa. The other day, there was a Docomo's open house, which was the R&D showcase session. I participated in there. And what was mentioned in there, the remote medical care, with the high-speed connection, the images will be sent and the data can be exchanged. And experienced doctors' knowledge can be utilized at the field. And that's in collaboration with a university hospital was mentioned. On the other hand, something that's close to this, for example, NTT Data in the United States is teaming up with Dell. And after that, they have become very strong in the medical care area, is what I've heard. Therefore, so the data exchange in medicine for R&D or partnership in that field, if you don't do it very well, there may be overlaps that may occur, was the impression that I got. Therefore, as a holding company, how should I say, the investment or how you're going to partner up within the NTT Group, to maximize the profit, do you have the method to control that? Or are you having the control on these things, is what I want to ask you. Thank you very much for your question. The lever or the control method, whether we have it or not, we don't have a clear rule, but in reality we do have them. In each area or field, Well, we have the B2B2X liaison meeting, meaning that all the relevant people communicate with each other so there's no overlap or there can be more collaboration. However, at the very, very cutting edge, there's the NDA that's going to is signed. So sometimes there are things that we cannot share everything, the overall picture, but I think at that time there are things that it's better to have this separate movement from each individual deal, and I think the medicine or the medical field is one of them. Collaboration with Dell is that entity data acquired Dell services, and they have their strengths in healthcare. And over there, instead of R&D, they are providing they have strength in providing solutions towards hospitals. That's what they mean. And let's say Professor Yamanaka, which is IPS Research Center, NTT Data is collaborating with them, and they are processing the data in Japan, the image data in Japan. And in Japan, working on remote medicine is something that we have been working on from a long time ago. So this part, we are aware of this with each other, but it's only in individual parts that we're doing. So in the long term, we have decided to start up a life science research lab. So I would like to combine ICT and medicine or healthcare. But at this time, it's not all controlled. That will be my current answer to you. Thank you very much. With this, it's time, so we'd like to close the presentation from President and CEO of NTT, Mr. Jun Sawada. Thank you very much for participating today.